D.C. Cofield. Welcome to the mics. My number two son, my compadre, attorney Brandon Cofield. B, what's going on, sir?
Man, so much. Obviously, always happy to be here on this lovely campus of Texas Southern University. I guess something to share with our listeners. Now we have a YouTube page, and we're trying to get some streaming so that people can check the stuff out afterwards. And so, and looking forward to sharing that. Right now, it's connected to my channel, which is just Brandon Cofield SR. So if you go on YouTube, you should be able to see it. But man, the amount of stuff that has happened since last Sunday, at least in the political spectrum, is, impressive, I'd almost say. When we last spoke, it was, we're just kind of ultimately navigating coming off of Juneteenth. But I did mention, and I kind of, I mentioned that there is the deadline for the governor. It's called like the veto deadline. And so all the bills that kind of made it all the way through all the rigmarole to get to the governor's desk, right? Because you got to have both sides agreeing on the exact same language and vote it through. Then it gets to the governor who can say yay or nay.
Right.
And so it vetoed, I think it was 26 bills in total. So I'm excited to talk about that. Obviously, Supreme Court kind of put their last day and a blockbuster day of hearings with that. And we had a resolution, technically, with what's going on with Iran. And some of the language, actually, I'm looking forward to talking to you about that as well. Kind of, I feel like we've lost a little bit of a sense of decorum in our national politics. And, and then just some other local stuff, man. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. I guess there's always a lot, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, I just say this, nationally, we see President Trump doing what he's doing and saying what he's saying. And, there are some who would argue that what he's doing is unprecedented. I would maybe not go that far. I think I would say that what he's doing openly is unprecedented.
Yeah, I can see that.
When you travel around the world and you see how the USA is viewed and how we have treated other countries and other continents, we've done it on the slick, man. We've done it on the slide. Like, he's just coming out and just saying, look, you know what? I don't like y'all. It's not how we're going to do this. And, hey, man, we're going to drop this, bunker bust on you. And, we're not even playing with this, right? And so there's a sense where I think there are a lot of people who at least respect the fact that he is being as open as he is. Whether you agree with it or not, you don't have to guess where this dude is coming from. And so, here he comes, and he's doing his thing, man, and he is blistering people. So let's start with the national news. What's going on there?
Yeah, so right now, I'm sure many folks have been hearing them talk about this one big beautiful bill or big beautiful bill, and it's interesting because the way that the process works is, the House has to get their version, similar to the same thing in Texas that I talked about before. The House has to come up with their version, and because they're trying to do this one big beautiful bill, they're trying to get a bunch of budget cuts and then also include a bunch of tax breaks at the same time, right? So to try to make it so that we're not adding a ton to the deficit. And so to get out of the House, a lot of concessions were made and backroom deals, and ultimately got to a place, and I think the estimated cost is going to be $2.4 trillion. And the Senate gets it, and they have a different set of rules, which is an interesting idea in general. So they get the House's plan, and first there's this thing they call like bird baths. So there's a Senator Byrd, basically anything that is not germane or like related directly to the purpose of the overall purpose of the bill can't be included in there. So a lot of concessions, a lot of work that was done on the House side gets to the Senate and they're like, we can't add that. We can't add that. We can't add that. So now you have people in the House that are like, well, wait a minute. The only reason why I signed on to this is because of this.
Right, right.
So this has been cut on this side, and then the Senate plan is supposed to be upwards of $3.3 trillion. And even just seeing the states that...
and let me just interrupt you there. So the Senate is making cuts. So I want to make sure our listeners are following this. So the House passed a version. It goes to the Senate. The Senate is like, nah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're coming up with our own version. Then that new version that they come up with has to go back to the House.
Right. And so I mean, I guess they had the option of agreeing fully, which obviously they did not. And so where we're at now is the Senate, 3 of the Republican senators effectively defected. So it was 50-50. So you had J.D. Vance needing to come down to do a tie. So it was a whole huge thing late in the evening. And they have this self-imposed deadline of July 4th, because I think President Trump's like, hey, I want to have this, nation-altering bill to be signed on the 4th of July, the big huge thing. And so, I mean, it's interesting because you have a bunch of different people with different interests, right? The senator in Missouri is like, hey, I know you guys want to get rid of everything that was done by the prior administration, but, Medicaid, they got a lot of people here. I mean, the census data, the 10 states with the highest level of poverty, all of them are Republican states except for New Mexico, which I would say is kind of purple. And so it's kind of like, hey, man, a lot of these government resources are helpful here.
They said like $12 million is going to be lost in terms of healthcare benefits.
Oh, 12 million people.
12 million people. I'm sorry. 12 million people. Yeah.
By 2030, I want to say.
Yeah.
So you're looking at all sorts of funding cuts there. And then also the issue is all of the EV and all of the wind turbine, all the alternative fuel grants that were out there in the last administration. They're like, hey, cutting all of that. The problem is almost all of those were built in Alabama, South Carolina. So you have these same senators that are like, hey, I know we voted against it before, but now it's giving a lot of people jobs.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we reconcile this.
And the House representatives, I think, even have a a greater fear, because they got to go back and be voted on next year.
Oh yeah, every 2.
Yeah. So they're like, look, y'all got a 6-year term over there in the Senate. Y'all mess up, and it's a long time, and it's hard to get a senator out and whatever have you. But man, hey, I only got 2 years, and now I've got basically a year left, and I'm going back up for election. And these folk, man, in these town hall meetings are like blistering, these Republicans saying, man, what are y'all doing? How you going along with this?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what's going to be so interesting is it's hard to get anybody to agree on anything, right? Yep. And the beauty and pain of this country is that it's so vast. I always say Texas is bigger than France. And so you can't get everybody in France to get along, much less different people with different interests. And so there's so many different personalities that are trying to squeeze in with different interests. Like you said, they got to come out into their districts. You got some people that are like, our deficit is just too big. I can't vote for this. And so they're getting pressed. I don't know if you saw today, Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina. He voted against it last night and then said, he's like, I'm not seeking re-election. He basically was like, I don't have time for this. I could be with my kids, grandkids, my wife. And he's like, they're going to jump down.
Rand Paul said he wasn't. And I think, I'm going to be honest with you, this is part of, at least for me, and I would consider myself an independent. Probably have leaned historically more to the Democratic side, but this is one of the pieces to me that the Republicans are going to have a hard time convincing people of moving forward. You claim to be the party of fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
You claim to be conservative and smaller government and all of these things. And you turn around, man, and you're going to add to the national debt, $2 or $3 trillion out of this big, beautiful bill?
Yeah.
And I heard Rand Paul saying, and I was listening, and I'm like, okay, Rand Paul, let me see, because you have historically set up your beachfront as, I am the guardian of fiscal responsibility. And I'm like, now let's see if you vote for this. If you succumb to the pressure of Trump mania and you go along with this, because there's no way these guys would vote for this if this was President Biden or President Obama or President Clinton or any Democratic president.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just trying to do too many things at once. I mean, at the end of the day, the idea of one big, beautiful bill sounds great when you are not someone that's been in the trenches trying to negotiate.
Yeah.
The president is just kind of like, hey, y'all figure it out. But I think any other president that had previously served in one of the chambers would probably be like, it is hard to come up with enough money to cut when, I mean, it's either cut military, can't do that, right, for the party, cut immigration and border security, can't do that. And the only thing left to cut, because the whole Doge experiment didn't really work, is social, like our social net. And so, I mean, it's like, well, I guess Medicaid, we're going to cut that. But these are real people with real people's lives. And I think that's going to be the most interesting thing come election time. Because, again, people lost their minds about bacon prices, eggs. You know, I mean, that was a good chunk of what President Trump was running on.
He's going to lower prices. And
it's like, well, maybe tariffs may or may not have affected your job. Maybe you had a government job that got cut. And now you're one of those 12 million without insurance?
Yeah, no, listen, you fool with AARP if you want to, but, seniors vote.
Absolutely.
What, now I need to say we vote. not seniors vote, not them seniors vote. We vote.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I did want to talk about, so I don't know if you saw President Trump's his expletive, dropped the F-bomb.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, one of our representatives from Dallas, Jasmine Crockett, also dropped the F-bomb in some speech. And it was received differently, obviously.
Oh, my God.
Right.
You're talking about a double standard.
Yeah.
I was watching the clip, man. Fox News, they were like, the president is very passionate about this, and we understand this. And literally, it was like 20 minutes later, the same woman who excused President Trump's F-bomb because he was passionate said in so many words, I'm offended by Jasmine Crockett's use of the F word. And I can't believe that she's not more intelligent than that. And I mean, it was a major subject, man,
absolutely,
over several shows. And I'm like, did y'all hear what the president said? But this dude said, hey, man, I can kill somebody.
Yeah.
In the middle of Times Square. And I ain't going to jail. Like, he's like, man, it's when you say a double standard, I don't think anybody has seen a double standard like we're seeing in our country today.
Well, do you think, I guess growing up, I always felt like using a curse word is kind of like a cop-out. Like, you can't convey a message clearly enough. So you're just like, look, let me throw one of these 4-letter words in here, and people are going to feel like I mean business. Do you think that people are grabbing onto that because it's like, oh, this person's a fighter? This person's they're serious enough that they would be willing to break from usual decorum and start cursing? Or do you think that it's one of those things where it's just like, hey, man, no one cares anymore? For me, I still hold these seats in these offices in high esteem. And so I'm just like, what are we doing? I mean, you both intelligent individuals. You don't have to curse if you don't want to.
But you're assuming some things. You're assuming a level of intelligence that has not been demonstrated.
Yeah.
And a level of decorum that people, especially those with money, don't feel the necessity or requirement of abiding by because they have so much money. So they set the rules. They make the rules as they go. I do think, though, that double standard, while it is a double standard, here's what we have known as people of African descent. Mm-hmm. There's always been a double standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't do what white people do and get away with it.
Yeah.
We just can't. I mean, it's a double standard. It's just that simple. And so when somebody says, somebody says it's not fair.
Yeah, man.
Listen, fair is where they judge hogs and cows, man. We know it ain't fair. Like, it's never been fair. But that double standard is still there. And the president is just showing us that it's still there. Like I said, I watched several clips of Fox News, and I was like, holy cow, they're like excusing this. They're like, matter of fact, some of them wasn't even talking about it. They were just like, president's very passionate about this. He really wants to see this happen and blah, blah, blah. And then they talked about Jasmine Crockett like she was the president.
Oh, yeah.
That was the crazy part. I'm like,
she one of what, 435?
Yeah, she's like a U.S. representative. Like, what are y'all talking? She's not even a senator. Like, what are y'all talking about, man? Y'all making this big deal. Jasmine Crockett, like she's drawing your ire like this.
What's so interesting is I get torn because obviously
The cussing congresswoman. I
Right.
guess that's what they're gonna start dubbing her.
but she's kind of the belle of the ball right now, right at the same time,
Sure.
and so this isn't the first time that she's cursed before, and I don't know, it's kind of this juxtaposition of she's probably one of the best fundraisers in the House, right, and probably one of the most exciting, I would say, representatives that makes people that otherwise wouldn't care show up.
Sure.
But then at the same time, like you said, we kind of have this, we talk about it, black people cannot be individuals, right? So as much as it makes sense to be an individual and be able to fundraise and do all of these things, it's still kind of like the collective now, right? It's probably, I'm sure she's heard the upset black woman, mad black woman, this, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, all right, how do we kind of walk this fine line of upholding the institution and its values, still fundraising, getting people to care that wouldn't otherwise care. And then, I mean, obviously, Rep. Crockett, I mean, she's an attorney, a brilliant person, but there's, I'm sure, some piece of it that is like, all right, I have to put on a little bit of a show because I know this is going to relate more closely with this group.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think there's an edge, and then you have, somebody like the, minority whip. You have, Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
Who even when he gets upset and that that Brooklyn, New York thing comes out, he still manages to control it and
Right.
whatnot. And so, I'm not tripping about it because at the end of the day, the only people she really has to worry about pleasing are her constituents.
Realistically, yeah.
And if they're cool with it and they're like, man, that Jasmine, that's my congresswoman, then she's good.
I think for me, it's not my favorite approach.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
However, I'm kind of a little bit of an older soul, and I kind of have a different, what makes me interested in politics is less so like the drama of it. It's not the popcorn of it. It's the advocating on behalf of the district to be able to get money back to your district so we can implement it on the right level. But when it comes to, man, I say not necessarily code switching, but it's almost like if this is what works for Rep. Crockett's district and her fan base, then that makes sense to do that. The same way is if the country club crowd understands a different jargon and a representative there is using a different term. I mean, it's kind of one and the same, but the way that the media is handling things, I always say I'm very, very, very disappointed with the media right now.
Well, President Trump has always presented himself as a blue-collar billionaire. Those terms are an oxymoron, but
Right.
So little profanity here and there, drop an F-bomb or whatnot, Bubba and Billy Ray and them be like, yeah, that's my guy.
Gets the people going, I guess.
Man. Yeah, so there's a group of people who are like, yeah, that's what I'm telling about Trump. Tell him. Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said. So he has to pander to that group.
Yeah.
Every now and then with some stuff that we look at and go, what in the world was he talking about?
Yeah. And that's just putting it lightly. I just think that, moving forward, I'm wondering how much further we're going to get from, I always just use the word decorum. I mean, at some point, when you act and carry yourself in a way that is outside of the scope of the amount of reverence you should have for the office, I think that bleeds into. Then you start having people standing up and yelling and cursing each other out, and we're just like, what are we doing?
But I don't know if that, to be honest with you, I think that was lost, man, in 2016. I think that was lost when President Trump was elected as 45. I mean, he did so many things that were outside of normal etiquette, normal boundaries, uncouth, ignorant, you can come up with any adjective you want to. And it's like, this dude just rewrote the whole script of what presidents should do. Or maybe not rewrote what presidents should do, but rewrote it in terms of we're seeing a president do stuff that we've never seen him do before in public. Going back to what I said earlier. It's like, now this dude's like, no, we're going to bomb you if you don't do this. Like, I'm trying to figure out, now, honestly, and man, I've been swamped, so I may have missed the announcement. But I was trying to figure out, what did Iran do to us that we dropped a bunker buster on them. Like, we dropped how many, with 300-pound bomb or whatever it was, 600 pounds. I'm like, what did they do to us? I'm trying to figure out, their beef with Israel is like generational.
Different. Yeah. That's different.
I mean, that's been going on forever. But I'm like, did they like bomb Trump Israel hotel or something? Like, what did they do that this dude said, yeah, we're gonna drop these bunker busters, and we've been thinking about this for 15 years. Let's go on and drop this bomb right now. I'm like, holy cow. So what happened? Because it seemed kind of random, I guess, from my perspective, but I wasn't, engaged in the news, so I missed it. All I know is I'm looking up and I'm like, they did what?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what's happening is, so they have their skirmish going, and it's honestly kind of part of the reason why a lot of people on the right are actually frustrated about it, because if we're doing this America First thing, if we're doing this isolationist type deal, why are we intervening when it's not necessary? Besides the fact that, I mean, a request was made to kind of get involved, but it was, if we're going to compare atrocities, I mean, the death count was a lot higher on the Iranian side than on the Israeli side, but it was just, to be honest, I think it was, all right, here's an opportunity to show some force and to disrupt things, say I did something, and then also squeeze into this deal, but make an announcement that we might do it so that the Iranians can pull out. The amount of back and forth between intel saying like, oh, we destroyed everything. Oh, well, no, maybe we didn't. Maybe they had time to move stuff out. It's just like, all right, I just think that there's a lot of politicking.
Watching everything, man, on satellite. So when they move stuff, and you know where they put it. Like I mean, you literally can see, man, whether they got cream in their coffee, man, with these satellites. I'm like, come on, dude, you know where the thing comes from now,
So the other thing that has been coming down the ladder from the president is wanting for this special session that Governor Abbott called. I guess for listeners, in case you did not know, session ended on June 2nd, and now Governor Abbott using his authority to call a special session, largely for the THC ban, which I want to talk to you about that as well. But President Trump is really pushing them to add this redistricting. So I think you recall that 2022, I believe, when there was that push to merge the Congresswoman district and Al Green's district, right?
Congressman Al Green,
And the push now is trying to figure out how we squeeze out some more districts. And, when I look at...
And just so our listening audience knows, there's been a population increase in the state of Texas. We've seen a number of people moving in, specifically from California, and other very expensive states and places to live.
Higher education, higher
and they're coming in, and it's real crazy because, the Republicans basically said, hey, all these people coming in, for example, from California, which is clearly a blue state.
Right.
They're coming in, and we picked up, I think at that time, 4 additional seats.
Yeah.
So you'll understand, right, as the House of Representatives, the number of seats does not change. Just where those seats are changes. So if you have a large population shift to another state, they're going to pick up some seats, and that state where people are moving from, based on their population, they're going to lose seats. So Texas picks up 4 seats, primarily big chunk of people coming from California. And the Republicans said, okay, well, we're going to take 2 of those seats, and we're going to give black people 1 seat, and we're going to give Hispanic people 1 seat. And then after that, they were like, you know what, we're going to merge Congresswoman, the 18th and the 9th Congressional District. We're going to merge those 2 because y'all are right next to each other. We're going to merge those 2. A lot of the votes that are going by in the House by a razor-thin margin are in part empowered because we don't have a representative of the 18th Congressional District, because our fearless governor has said we're not going to have a special election.
Well, until November.
Yeah, November.
Yeah,
okay.
No, it definitely is making the votes now easier. I think the thing so we're so gerrymandered, right? I mean, you look at the...
And if you wonder, if you're wondering about this, just go online and Google, districts and just watch how those districts are drawn.
Yeah, congressional districts.
Oh my God, it's so crazy. I mean, you got slivers, running through neighborhoods, and it's like everybody on Emancipation. Just as an example, if this was the case, like everybody on Emancipation, is in the 18th congressional district. But people in Midtown, are in another district. I'm just using it as an example. I'm not saying that's the case, but what I'm saying is, literally, people are taking pens and pencils and just really drawing that stuff in a crazy, crazy way.
Yeah, and so what they're wanting to do, so it's kind of two options, right? You can either split up the Democratic vote in as many areas so that it kind of like weakens that.
Right, gets watered down. Yep.
Right. And the idea, if you're like, hey, we want the whole state to be Republican, or you can just try to consolidate as much of the Democratic vote into one spot. And that's kind of where we're at currently. They kind of consolidated it. And so I think a lot of the pushback that I've been hearing is that if we redraw this too much more, we might end up giving Democrats some seats because of the way that it currently is. I mean, it's an interesting almost level of arrogance, I think, that you win a presidential election and you have basically a supermajority. And the assumption is that this supermajority means that across the board, everywhere, we really are the more popular deal. Like,
yeah,
we're our voice is not being heard. And it actually kind of goes to, before we get to the THC ban, I actually want to talk to you about, I don't know if you saw a bill that is changing the election days. So this has actually been signed into law. And so historically, the 17 days out from election day, there would be basically there's a total of 12 days. So you know how we always have like that weekend before would be off. And so the law change, which I don't know what they were thinking. I'm smiling. I'm almost giddy about this. The law changes that instead of it having to start 17 days out, it starts 12 days out, and it'll lead all the way through into election Sunday or election Tuesday. So now you have 2 weekends. And so in my head, I was like, man, when I saw it, I thought... For
early voting, you mean?
Yeah, for early voting.
Gotcha.
And I thought that it was a mistake because the way that I view more Democrats are usually hourly workers and not able to take off work to go vote than I would think people on the right.
Sure.
So adding a Saturday and a Sunday, as much as they hate souls to the polls and everything else, to add that and then extend the time on that Sunday from 6 to 9 p.m., I was like, you're sure that this is not going to backfire on the Conservative Party? So I'm very curious to see how that plays out. So the state every county has until 2027 to implement this. And so Clerk Hudspeth, there's a couple of quotes from her that she's kind of just like, I mean, this is going to change logistics, right? Before we'd have all the early ballots, so we knew kind of where people were at.
Yeah.
Now people are going to get results later into the evening. So it's just like, y'all be prepared because we're going to be counting all the way through.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting idea to add a weekend and a Sunday. I just feel like that does not benefit the majority right now. I don't know. What do you think?
I would tend to agree with you. I think, but here's what's interesting. Let's take the 18th congressional district, right? The 18th congressional district is a minority district, but percentage-wise, there are more Latinos in the 18th congressional district than African Americans, population-wise. Right. Not talking about registered voters.
Yeah.
Just talking about population.
Voting age, voter. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so now the question is, how many more Latinos and Latinas will the Republican Party be able to flip? And I think that may be part of their thinking. Because I don't think they're worrying about, especially in the state of Texas, the voting appetite of African American people. We have historically undervoted, and we don't come out. We just don't. We've been rah-rahing, registered to vote, but folk don't come out and vote. And I think we could argue that President Trump would not have gotten in without the strong support of the Latino population. Many of their relatives being deported right now.
Well, and see, that's the thing, right? That's an arrogance in my head.
Oh, yeah.
To assume that, and And I get, this is, people are in a very selfish place right now politically, where it's like, if it does not literally affect me.
And they voted and they didn't think it would affect them.
Right.
Because my family members are picking the strawberries. My family members are working in the fields. My family members are law-abiding citizens. My family members are working on construction sites. And when you see people with, Hispanics for Trump, on the back of their T-shirt and ICE is carrying them off, it's like, hey, man, yeah, and several of them reached out and were like, man, we need to have a summit, with African-American leaders. We need to fight this. And it's like, what? Like, tried to tell you. You were like, no, viva la Trump. You was good with it. So it's like, okay, I mean, this is what you get,
Well, but with that, does that mean that adding that Saturday and Sunday I still don't think that brings any new Latino vote to the Republican Party, in my opinion. Again, when I think of the individuals that are more likely going to be urban, minority, specifically black,
I don't think they think we're going to get out and vote. I'm going to be honest with you, man. If you ask me, why would the Republicans pass that?
Yeah.
Because somebody convinced somebody that we stand more to gain than to lose by doing that.
Yeah, they saw the numbers.
Right. They looked at the numbers and they were like, man, black folk ain't coming out anyway. They can sold to the poll all they want to.
Yeah.
They're not coming out. They're not voting. So
man.
we good. Now, it would be nice if we made them a liar. I just don't know if we have enough gumption to do that.
Well, I don't know if it's even gumption as much as it's organization and intentionality. I think that's the thing that plagues at least, again, thinking about CD18 or just Black Houston. Obviously, we've talked about the number of times where you have an at-large city council race, and then we have 8 black people in there, 1 Latino, 1 Republican, and it's 1 Latino, 1 Republican, and that's who gets in the runoff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that was easily avoidable.
We'll find out about the 18th. Were we up to 20 people running now?
Word on the street, 25, I think. Amanda Edwards said in her speech the other day, and I was like, I don't even know. I mean, I know more than 25 people, Zay, so don't laugh at me. I do know more than that, but I don't even know any of the people in there. After the big 4 or 5, and I think of that mostly based off of who can fundraise. It's kind of, but I mean, I'm glad, and actually that's something else to talk about. I'm glad that there's a lot of different voices and opinions, right? In theory, that is how the process is supposed to work. My concern is, because black people just in America are already, 11% of the country, like if we are not intentional, there is no way to move the needle in an effective way, because it's just going to get harder and harder. We're just getting smaller and smaller. And so as much as it's great to hear lots of voices, each individual is going to be pulling money from somebody else that might have been giving money to this or having an impact down ballot on a judge's race. And so I don't want to tell anybody, don't run. I don't want to say that we need to have like a political machine, but I'm almost saying we kind of need to have a political machine and don't run, because
I think arguably, I don't want to say he was the singular voice, because I was not in Houston at the time. But from what I was told, one of the strongest coalescing voices in this Houston metropolitan area was Mickey Leland.
Yeah.
And there are those who have said to me publicly, or privately, I should say, that it has not been the same since he passed. That his death prematurely elevated some people to the position of perceiving themselves as a kingmaker.
Mm.
And so there are some who I think may be trying to do the right thing, not necessarily the right way.
Yeah.
And again, for 25 people to be running, it's like, come on, y'all. You can't, at least 20 of y'all can't raise the money that you need.
Just to get on the ballot.
Right.
I mean, it costs money to get on the ballot.
Right. You got to get signatures. You got to do all of that stuff, man. What you doing? Like rent parties and barbecues and passing the hat. Like, how you gonna get on, and how you gonna run? We're not even talking about the competency to run.
Oh yeah.
Right. We're just saying, hey, you just want to put your name out there, and maybe they're hoping that, people will kind of cancel each other out. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting as we get closer to it. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to your member-supported public radio station, your community station, KTSU 90.9 on the FM dial. I'm Dr. D.Z. Cofield, your host for Real World, Real Talk. We'll be back in just a moment.